engeziwe ukunisiza ukuba niphumelele kwizivivinyo zenu enizozibhala maduzane nje. Sinothisha abanethulela izifundo zika-grade 12 zonke izinsuku kusukela ngoMsombuluko kuze kube yiSonto. Zithokozeleni lezi zifundo, nisithumelele imibuzo lapho nidinga khona usizo.
Good evening, grade 12. This program is proudly brought to you by Go to Tutor SA Foundation, Ithala Edu Platform, and Pendugani Full Service High School. This is your English first additional language, and I am Miss Zigalala. Today we are looking at a short story, and the one that we are doing is titled The New Tribe. Our author is Buchi Imecheta. So, Buchi Imecheta was born in 1944 in Lagos in Nigeria. Well, she then moved to London, where she has lived since. She's published a number of novels and explores the themes of child slavery, womanhood, and female independence, as well as being an African in Britain. So, while we look at this short story, we are obviously going to look at the themes of this story, or themes in context. So, one of the themes before we go to our summary is adoption. We look at a young boy who is only 18 months, who is being adopted by a family, and his name is Chester. And we also look at Julia, who was adopted after she was found when she was a couple of hours old. So the Allingtons adopt both Julia and Chester. Problems arise as the children grow up. Chester is visibly different from the rest of his family because of his skin color. He is black and they are white. Mrs. Allington and Mr. Allington, who's known as the vicar, are both white, and also Julia is white. Therefore, he realizes early that he has been adopted. Like most of adopted children, Chester wants to know about his real mother because, well, at school, children are saying that he can't be the Allington's child because he's black. It really wouldn't make sense why he's black and everyone in the family is white. In fact, everyone in the community is white. So we also look at mixed race families. We've spoken about that when we're talking about adoption, Chester being adopted to a family of white and being introduced to the new community of white people. So this is a mixed race family. They have a black child and they are all white. So the title tells us that this story is about a new tribe. And in this story, the Allingtons family is compared to a tribe. They're a group of people who have joined together. The Allingtons are a family, but they are different from other families. In the Allington household, 3 people are white and only Chester is black. Therefore, from a young age, he has known that people regards as parents are not really his biological parents. And this leads to concerns about his real identity. He wants to know more about where he comes from. He wants to know more about his parents. And this, at first, is an internal conflict until Chester decides to ask his adoptive parents about the matter. And the third theme is racial prejudice. This type of prejudice is based on differences in race. For example, in this story, Chester is black, and, well, it seems that when the social workers introduce the matter to the Allingtons, that they want them to adopt Chester. So they expect the couple to refuse to take him in because Chester is going to be the only black child in the community. So if the child's race was unimportant, there would have been no need to inform the couple of this fact. So Chester is aware that he's different from a young age. He's only black person in the family and the only black boy in the community. He's given the part of the king because, well, according to the story, the kings came from the Orient, which is the east. So where his people we learn in the story come from, because he's from Nigeria. And the last theme is identity. So identity includes knowing your race, your religion, your gender, your sexuality, and as well as your language. It also includes our ideas, interests, and opinions. So, when we look at the story, Chester looks different from his parents and from the other children at school. The children at school and even the principal say mean things to Chester about his race. This makes him wonder about his identity much earlier than other children. As Chester gets older, he feels the pressure of getting to know where he comes from, getting to learn about his identity. He wonders and thinks about a village in Africa, a place that he thinks might feel more like home for him. So now let us look at the title of the story. The title of this story refers to the Arlingtons. So when Chester is adopted to this family, they become a mixed race family. And well, we learn that in the story, this becomes a new tribe for him, because there is no one in the community that is black, no one in the family that is black. So this is a new tribe for Chester. So if we look at the narrative voice, the story is narrated in the third person narration, because the person or the narrator is an outsider. His or she is not a character in the story. The third person narrator can tell us everything about what the characters do, why they're doing it, what they think and say, and why they think and say these things. So we say this is an omniscient narrator, a narrator who knows everything. So Buchi Emecheta knows about Chester's life, and well, she tells us what happens to Chester as Chester is introduced to this new tribe. So we look at the tone. Early in the story, the tone is joyful. As the children arrive in the family, we also learn that Jeannie wanted children of her own, but she could not have with her husband. So there are some moments of tension and frustration when the process of the adoption becomes a little too much, especially for Arthur. And then it changes when Arthur punishes Chester for laughing at Julia after she broke a plate. So let us look at our characters. We have Ginny and Arthur Arlington, who have a problem of not being able to have their own biological children. So when the two children are introduced to them, they're very excited to be their adoptive parents, and they really take good care of them. We also have Catherine Mba, although we do not know much about Catherine, but we know that she is Chester's biological mother. We have Miss Slattery. Miss Slattery is Chester's teacher at school. We have Julia, Chester's sister. And we have Julienne, the paper boy, who found Julia and took her to the Arlingtons because he believed they would be great parents for Chester. We have Ray Miller, who becomes Ray's friend at school. We also know a bit about Ray's mother. We have Pamela, Julia's best friend. And, well, so I want to highlight to you that you cannot just take a summary or just take your notes and go through them without reading the short story. You need to know your short story. You need to know your characters. You need to know and understand or comprehend what is happening in the story for you to be able to answer or respond to your contextual questions. So we are not going to deeply go through the story, but we will just summarize it as we go through it page by page, if that is going to help. So, I guess bege a short story in the new tribe. kapuchi imecheta. So, in the first page, if you are reading from Changes by B. Walter, an anthology of short stories, we're starting from page 166. So, the story say introduced to us the setting of the story. It takes place in Saint Simon. So we are introduced to the story and sisiyafunda ukuthi what is happening lana yipi the internal conflicts, the external conflicts, but lapho you need to be able to identify ukuthi if it's an internal conflict, it is just a conflict that a character is trying to deal with internally or without actually discussing it with anyone. So a struggle within oneself. A person must make some decision, overcome pain, quiet their temper, resist an urge, etc. So there is an internal conflict. And you also have external conflict, which is a struggle with a force outside oneself. So a conflict it could be a conflict or a struggle between two people in the story. The character is usually on one side of the central conflict. On the other side, the main character may struggle against another important character, against the forces of nature, against society. We look at Chester being introduced to this new society where he feels as if he does not belong, or against something inside himself or herself. So in this kind of case, Chester wants to know about his biological parents. Okwenzakalayo gilana. Ekuseni we have Julian, the paper boy, who was cycling past the telephone booth, and he says, "Where's umntwana?" crying. So wamthatha umntwana and wamhambisa to the Arlingtons. So why did he decide to take the baby to the Arlingtons? Into yokuqala emfiyelayo ukuthi they are good people, they are Christians, and they don't have children. So, well, because Mr. Arlington is a vicar, he will definitely know what to do with the child. So, uJulian as ends rounds in the morning of delivering a paper, usethatha lo mntwana that he finds in a Tesco bag. Uyamhambisa laphayana to the Arlingtons. So, into yokuqala uyathuka unkosikazi wakhe uyehla downstairs joining him laphayana esathukile ukuthi umntwana wentombazane lona. So uJinny useyamthatha umntwana uyam-unwrapper because ufike egoqwe in a blanket, and uyena kutshela u-Arthur ukuthi it's a girl. So besaxakile kanjalo ke uJinny tries to make milk for the baby, the one that she was going to use for her coffee, and then uyazama ukumfunza this milk. So useyasho-ke kumyeni wakhe ukuthi they have to report this to the police, and they need to find the child's mother. A child must also see the doctor because umntana udojiwe nje laphayana by the telephone booth. So bayavumelana, they both agree that they should do that. So bayafona ke baphoyisa-ke, and well, since umntana mncane, she was only a couple of hours old. So ke umntwana baqale bacinge kwalokwa a national search ukuthi kutholakale uma umntwana, but unfortunately they could not find the child's mother. So after some time, the Arlingtons became the baby's official foster parents. So if we look at the word foster, when we talk about foster parents, I want us to just look at the definition of foster. When you're saying the child has foster parents, it means that they'll be taking care of the child for a certain period of time. So initially they are not legal parents. Siyazi ukuthi later on bagcina bem-adopta uChester beno Julia. So ukuthi they adopt them, it means to legally become the parents of these two children. So the Arlingtons adopt Chester and Julia later on in the story. So, into eyenzakalayo ke, bayaqhubeka ke. They christened the baby, uJulia, and then bambiza ngoJulia after they name her after uJulian, the paper boy. Laphayana ku page 167. It says, at last she had been granted what she most desired. So, uJeannie, kudala efuna ukuba nabantwana, kudala efuna ukuba nabantwana nomyeni wakhe, but abakhona ukuthola abantwana babo. So, ujabule ngokuthola umntwana okuwuJulia, bajabule kakhulu. So, kuhamba isikhathi. And then one day, sebekhohliwe ukuthi uJulia akusiyena nomntanabo o-biological. Social services uyabafonela, bafuna ukubabona. Why befuna ukubabona? Bayathuka. U-Arthur ucabanga ukuthi bafuna ukuthatha uJulia, kanjalo noJeannie ucabanga kanjalo. So bathukile ngokufona ka-social services. So kwenzakalani? Social services uyafika uzobabona kulesithathu. Bayafika ke bayabachazela ukuthi kunomunye umntwana. Umntwana lo uma wakhe has been following Julia's progress in the press. So while she was following Julia's progress in the press, useyacela ukuthi ama-Allingtons adopte umntanakhe. And that mother is Catherine Mba from Nigeria. After following the progress kaJulia, useyacela ama-Allingtons. Uthi-ke, the reason why she cannot keep Chester is because her husband does not want to take care of another man's child. Uthi indoda yakhe ayifuni ukunaka ingane yenye indoda because they are expecting twins. So, kanjalo yena decide ukuthi umntwana uzomnikeza for adoption. Ucela ke ama-Allingtons because she believes ukuthi uChester will have umndeni onemfudumalo and a loving family. Bayam-adopta ke. Even though ke kunama challenges before befike ekuthenini ba-adopte uChester. Sebeyaba inform ukuthi uChester is a black child. Sikhulumile nge-racial prejudice ukuthi ke if bekungabalekanga the color of Chester's skin, bebengeke baze basitshela ukuthi uChester is black ngesikhathi efika lana. So, uChester ufika umntwana omnyama and bayabazisa lokho ukuthi how. So, bayibuza labo ukuthi how uCatherine Mba engenza kanjani ukuthi anikeze ngomntanakhe kanjalo nje bona bebafuna kangaka ukuthola abantwana. Uyabuza uJeannie laphayana uthi how could a woman give up this beautiful child? So ke kodwa bayibuza nje bonke ukuthi how umzali onjani ngempela onganikela ngomntanakhe. At the same time uChester esefikile lana uArthur he's worried ukuthi bazoqala phansi futhi with the process ebivele inzima initially when they were trying to adopt Julia, their relationship, their financial standing and their emotional fitness. And then sekuyabuka ku page 169 ukuthi abengekho sure ukuthi he wants to go through that again. So, Jeannie, apart from all the proceedings, we can never be sure this mother won't pop up to claim her child at any moment. So, ke enye into abayisaba kakhulu ukuthi bazothi sebemkhulisile umntwana uChester ngelinye ilanga nje aqhamuka uma wakhe athi umntanami lo and I want my child back. So, enye izinto lena ebahlukumezayo emoyeni ukuthi noma aba-worried ngayo ukuthi kuzokwenzakalani ngelanga uCatherine Mba eqhamuka ethi ufuna umntanakhe. So ke njengoba ama-proceedings eqhubeka e-adoption ulokhu njani uChester noJulia they have this bond asebenayo sebekhonzene ngalendlela emangalisayo. And then so ke kuyaqala ke seyabamamukela and then ugcina ke beba abantwana babo. uJulia useyaqala ke she writes a storybook for Chester. And uyasho ukuthi because she doesn't know anything about Nigeria, wahamba wa e-library wayofunda and then wabuya wazokenza this storybook. Acabanga ukuthi indawo uChester aphuma kuyona ikanjani. So slowly and painstakingly, she made Chester a storybook based on an African folktale she had read. Ifunda kuphi e-library. She illustrated it herself using details she had read about. On the cover, she painted green banana trees and tall, graceful palms surrounding a mud-walled compound. Inside the compound, she painted her own vision of an African village scene. Women carrying water pitchers on their heads, men sitting together under a shade tree, and children playing. She read the book to Chester every night until he came to know all the words and pictures by heart. So siyakubona ukuthi ekutheni seyayazi uChester incwadi, kuthi later on in the story useqala ukuba nalemcabango about this village acabanga ukuthi iyikhaya lakhe, okuyinto emhluphayo uChester mangabe ebona ukuthi kahle kahle akabelongi laphayana. But yini ke eyenza ukuthi uChester abone sengazathi akabelongi laphayana? Ku page 170 akazi ke kahle kahle ukuthi kunini la uChester abona khona ukuthi the Allingtons are not his biological parents. Chester could not remember the exact moment when he knew he was adopted. It was like learning to feed yourself. So, while sifunda i-short story, while siyenza i-summary, siyaqhubeka ukuthi sibheke our figures of speech. So it was like learning to feed yourself. So kufaniswa in laphayana using, when we were doing poetry, we said a comparison where we use as or like is referred to as a simile. So sinayo laphayana figure of speech. Kuthiwa, it was like learning to feed yourself. Ukuthi azi ukuthi it just came instinctively. uChester wayengazi ukuthi kena ama-Allingtons are not his biological parents. But kwenzeka as ekhula uyafunda ukuthi ayibo, these are not my biological parents. Because nasesikoleni abantwana bayambuza ukuthi hawu, kanjani wena ungaba umntwana omnyama efamilini yabantu abamhlophe, even though bengakusho njengoba ngokusho. But the question lana is, they cannot be your parents because when are you black and they are white? And then meanwhile, the man he knew as his father, Reverend Arthur Allington, was married to his mother, Jeannie. The Allingtons were like a strong tree under whose branches Chester and Julia sheltered. And this simile tells you, they gave protection, they gave them warmth, they gave them love, and they were a very strong family. Kuwo wonke ama-challenges abawafacile ukuthi bengabathola abantwana babo, when they finally get to have ingane that are not their own, they still love them and they still cherish them. He gave vent to a howl so loud and sudden that Miss Lettery, the teacher, jumped and ran to him. So akasekhulunyanga ukuthi ke uChester ke useyahamba ke uyoqala isikole la uJulia afunda khona. Mayefika esikoleni uChester, it's a new environment. He has never been to school before. And to add on top of that, when he gets to school, uChester kunabantwana babelungu, kunabantwana bonke babelungu, uyena yedwa umntwana omnyama kulesa sikole. But ke uChester yena akanankinga naleyo nto leyo until abone ukuthi wonke umuntu is treating him differently. So uma ekhala uChester ke esikoleni ufuna uma wakhe, and then Miss Lettery thinks it is a good idea ukuthi ahambe ayolanda usisi kaChester, which is Julia. And then uyahamba uyamlanda usisi wakhe, ubuya naye uze eklasini, bayahlala uChester uyayeka ukhala. But ngesikhathi ekhala akakhali yedwa, nezingane lezi ziyabona ukuthi utholi attention nazo ziyaqala ziyakhala. So uma sesemlandile usisi wakhe uyajabula ukubona ukuthi usethule uChester akasakhali. But manje sekuyi-challenge ukuthi ke lezi zinye ingane zisakhala ngoba zibona this attention uChester ayitholayo ngesikhathi ekhala. So ngesikhathi ke kuba na this noise, drawn by the noise, the headmaster came to investigate. Headmaster useyeza uzobuza ukuthi uzobona ukuthi ke kungani abantwana bekhala. Mayefika laphayana ingane ziveleke zishintshe, the mood changed immediately. So kusho ukuthi there is this now authoritative figure esikhona la endlini, ingane ziyekele ukukhala. So useyasho ke nje jokingly uMiss kaChester, uMiss Slattery useyambiza laphayana Chester. Usethi-ke, well, you little devil, you started the uproar, and now look at you, laughing away with your sister. Jokingly, akazi ukuthi kuzoba namthela muni ukubiza uChester nge-devil. She says, you little devil. So-ke, lapho futhi sine-metaphor, we have a metaphor lapho, where Miss Slattery directly says to Chester, you are a devil. Nini, you were crying. And now, usuyahleka with your sister as if nothing happened. But Julia gets very, very upset. Mangabe ethi uthisha kaChester, he is a devil. Ufuna ukwazi ukuthi why embiza nge-devil. Uyasukuma while she's upset, and she says, he's not a devil, he's my brother. UChester akazi ukuthi yini wrong with the teacher saying he is a devil. He just, Julia, Chester was different, and mommy had told her to look after him. No one was going to pick on him. So even though utisha ukusho lokhu jokingly, but Julia usekubona as an attack to Chester. Why embiza ngosatani? Ingoba nakhe emnyama, ingoba nakho uChester ehlukile from other kids. Iyo leyo nto eyenza ukuthi ke abe upset. So ke kuxakekiwe kanjalo ke ukuthi hawo yini lena esikwatisa uJulia kangaka kuxakeka bani uChester. And then kuhamba isikhathi after that incident eyenzekile uChester kusefile ngazathi kumele azame konke okusemandleni akhe ukuthi engenzi any trouble ngoba ubonile ukuthi he is actually spoiling things for others, including his sister Julia. And then kuhamba isikhathi kuthiwa a day or two after this incident kwafika umntwana omusha esikoleni, Ray Miller, who started school ngoba kade engekho. So mama kuyamletha uRay Miller, and because Ray is new at school, naye he's still not comfortable with being with other children. So he starts to cry. Yesikhathi ekhala, uChester, wanting to show that he was a big boy, uyahamba ke uya kwi-comrade lakhe who's crying and puts his arms up around him. Useyamtshela ukuthi I cried too, but I don't cry anymore. So ke useyambuza ukuthi do you want to color with me? And then kanjalo they became comrades in arms. Ngelantshi uMaka Ray is making food for them and bajabulile. So if first time maye ngasekupheleni as the story progresses in page 172. As the first term drew to a close, the children were preparing for a Christmas nativity play. So, you need this nativity play. This is a story played. This is a story performed rather in many parts of the world each year. So around Christmas, the play shows the birth of Jesus Christ in a stable. Chester plays the part of the first king in the nativity play. So mangabe kuthiwa akwenziwe this story, this nativity play, they are choosing him to be the first king laphayana we play. So ingane zonke ziyayifuna le part, noma ingane eziningi ziyayifuna le part, but Chester is chosen as a leader of the three wise kings. Isiyaqhubeka useyasho ukuthi the teacher useyasho ukuthi why exactly is she choosing Chester? Uthi it's because the kings came from the Orient, and the word Orient refers to the East. So Chester akaka understand what is the Orient, such that when he gets home ubuzuma uthi mommy, what's the Orient? Ufuna wazi ukuthi ke what's the Orient ngempela. So uyamtshela ukuthi it's the East, or it means the East, where the wise men came from. Useyabuza ukuthi what's the East? Because uChester umntwana akazi nokuthi yini ke leyo East that his mother is talking about. And then Ginny's response is where your people came from. So imudleke in bed uChester or imstress this ukuthi how? Why is his mommy saying where your people come from. Because now, ngokwazi kwakhe, the Allingtons are his people. So why is his mother saying, your people? So the sense of unbelonging strengthens kuChester ngesikhathi etshela ukuthi you have your people. So basically, they are not his people. They start to prepare for their picnic. And ngesikhathi belungiselela i-picnic, njengoba uChester ikhula lento yokuthi he wants to know about his parents, decide ukubabuza Ginny and Arthur, "What's Dad? Who's my real mother?" Esikhaleni nje uyababuza ukuthi ubani uma wakhe wangempela. So basathuswe yilo mbuzo ukuthi yini indaba uChester ebabuza lo mbuzo lona. Well, babethukile nabo and bebengazi ukuthi bazomphendula kanjani. So uyasho ukuthi I just want to know who my parents are. Abantwana esikoleni, they say I cannot be your child because I'm black. So uJinny avele akhale when she hears this. So Julia, sitting next to Ginny, sniffed quietly. She was wearing the white dress with red flowers. So esehlala phansi, Arthur wants them to sit down so they can talk about this. Mabeqala ke bekhuluma, useyasho ukuthi ke Arthur, we both love you very much. Uthi siyanthanda as ingane zethu. But then usefuna ukuqhubeka achaze ukuthi kungani bengasibona abantwana babo. Some children are born to parents who don't want them. Uyachaza. While he's explaining that, Ginny interrupts him and she says some parents want their children but can't afford to keep them. So uzama ukuba a bit polite. Uthatha njengomama ukuthi asikwazi ukuvele sikhulume kanjena. uChester is still very young and fragile ukuthi sengakhulunywa naye kanjena. Seyabachazela ke ku page 174. Well, useyasho ukuthi kwenzakaleni. Wena Julia sakuthola kanje. Julian found you while he was doing his paper rounds in the morning. Wakuthola near the telephone booth and then wakuletha lana. Now Chester uma wakho followed Julia's progress in the press and then wakucela ukuthi sik-adopte because she was expecting twins and ubaba weyingane wathi ngeke akwazi ukunakekela omunye umntwana. So uChester ke, he was just staring at the tablecloth. So uJinny and Arthur waited ukuthi uChester usezothini after eselazi iqiniso. But then Chester was lost for words. He didn't know what to say. Julia got up slowly, walked to the kitchen window and looked outside. Can you go to the beach now? As if nothing happens. So the difference between how Julia reacts after she has discovered that the Allingtons are not their biological parents. She remains calm and she wants them to carry on with their lives as if nothing happened, as if they haven't told them anything. But Chester, on the other hand, becomes withdrawn. He doesn't want to, when his mommy opens arms to give them a hug, he steps back. Akafuna ukuhagwa uma wakhe. Sometime after the revelation about his mother, Chester started to have a recurring dream. So le phupho leli loku liyaqhubeka uChester ubona this compound efana naleya uma wakhe ayidwebile laphayana eyenzakalayo emqondweni wakhe. It opened in surroundings he took to be an African village on page 175. There were several small round thatched huts arranged around a much bigger one. The grounds of the compound were swept every morning by handsome young men with armlets around their strong upper arms, and circling their waists were skirts, the likes of which Chester had never seen before. So ke lo mcabango uyaqhubeka of this village akacabanga ukuthi uChester it's where he belongs. And then this part of the dream haunted him for a very long time. Why is he seeing this? Why is he having this vision? Why kunabantu besifazane in that village? Why kunamantombazane amaningi? Waqala-ke ukucabanga this compound as his own, ukuthi somewhere it's waiting for him to come and claim it. He had this idea emqondweni wakhe ukuthi when the time comes, uyocela uJulia ukuthi akahambe naye baye kule compound lena. So, Julia started to have this tendency of staring into empty space as if she was looking for something. And then uJeannie wayicabanga ukuthi these times are perplexing, but akakwazi ukubuza uJulia ukuthi why is she staring at empty spaces? So isikhathi ke siqhubeke, and this one morning bahleli at the kitchen table while they're having breakfast, and Vika is making notes for his sermons. So he didn't really pay much attention to what was going on in the house. He showed his concern by being gentler than usual with his wife and daughter. They are not mentioning anything about Chester and how he then treated Chester after they revealed the news to them. So, and then this particular day, the family was having breakfast at the kitchen table, with Jeannie trying too hard to make conversation. Chester was lost in his dream city, and Julia was gazing at the floor. Arthur, as usual, scribbling notes as he ate breakfast. So, ngesikhathi Jeannie is trying to make conversation with her husband. Husband wakhe is not really paying much attention to what Jeannie has to say. Ngaso leso sikhathi ke, kuvele uJulia awisa iplate. Maliwa iplate, uyathuka, Julia opened her eyes wide, dramatizing her innocent blue stare, which made Chester burst into laughter. UChester ke avele ahleke, and Arthur got very upset. He felt this rage brewing inside him. Arthur faced Chester squarely, his face red with rage. He could hardly contain the storm raging inside him. Once again, we have a metaphor. Ukutshengisa the way ayekwate ngakhona, noma the way how furious he was. Ngesikhathi uChester ehleka ukuthi Julia just broke a plate. Ngesikhathi zama, in an effort to control himself, he gripped the edge of the kitchen table and his knuckles showed white. Straightening up, he asked slowly and deliberately, "And what is so amusing about all this, Chester?" So usabuza uChester, uyamyekela lona obulala iplate, uya kuChester ukuthi yini ehlekisayo ngokufa kweplate. uChester uyamphendula ukuthi nothing. Remember, uChester at this age usekwi-adolescent stage. So uyamphendula ukuthi ayikho into ehlekisayo. Then wena uhlekani? Uyamtshela ukuthi I just laughed. Yabona. So he was very angry. Uyaxolisa ke after that. Uthi I'm sorry. I only laughed. uJulia kuya-eda uthi he didn't mean to. But ngendlela Arthur akwate ngakhona, he does not want to hear any of their explanations. Whether Chester is sorry or not, it really does not matter at this point in time because he's really angry. Stop it, all of you. Sekuzongena banike manje. uJeannie, she intervenes in the whole conflict lena that is happening. Her voice was trembling. Efuna nokhala. And ngesikhathi uChester is trying to grab his school bag, athi Arthur, oh no, you don't. You can clear the table and wash the breakfast things. And he's ordering Arthur, ordering Chester ukuthi awukwazi ke esikoleni ungakayizigezi izitsha. But Chester wants to understand, why should I wash dishes instead of going to school? Because I'm going to run late. Then you'll tell your teacher ukuthi you were being punished because when I was. So Chester abeke phansi isikhwama sakhe and then, well, ageze izitsha njengoba etsheliwe. And then uyazama ukuthi to catch up with Julia and some of her friends ngesikhathi ke they walking to school. And then mayifika laphayana ukhuluma noJulia ukuthi ubonile yini ukuthi what you got me into. Pamela, Julia's best friend, is the one who responds to what Chester is saying. Uthi, get lost, Chester. We don't talk to boys. Uyamxosha, and then Julia starts to laugh. So Chester shrugs and he walks past them to the gym. So now her friend wants to know what was all that about. But Uti, it's family secrets. And then she says, do you know, you and Chester are starting to be as weird as your mother. Julia fell silent and Pamela knew she had gone too far. So if we look at that line on page 178, do you know, you and Chester are starting to be as weird as your mother. So now say comparisha lapayano comparisha bani Chester and Julia to their mother because of the way they are acting. Well, perhaps after sebetholile ukuthi these are not their biological parents. So as the story continues, Jeannie and Arthur sebakamukelile ukuthi Chester and Julia are not their biological children. But now, Chester uyacabanga ukuthi one day kuyomela ukuthi ahambe. Well, kube ngasiyo into yokuqala ukuthi yenzeke because abanye abantwana sebeke bahamba. Some of them even traveled abroad. Sometimes they came back to St. Simon to show off their new elevated positions and to see their families. So uyacabanga ukuthi kuyobe kungaqali ngaye ukuthi ahambe, even though in this kind of case yena uzobe engahandiswa ilokho, but uyobe handiswa ukuthi ufila sengazathi akabelongi lana akhona. So even though bengakaze bemenze afile ukuthi this was an act of charity ukuthi bama-adopt, he just knew ukuthi kumele ayiphathe kahle in the community and angaphoxa abazali bakhe. So usondeleke Christmas. So while Uvika is preparing a sermon, Jeannie is also busy with the costume because, well, ngokwazi kwakhe Chester is going to play the part yokuba yini iking. Kodwa ke utholakala ukuthi Chester is no longer keen on that part. I don't think he's keen on that part again this year, Arthur suggested. Ngesikhathi Chester ebaleka when he had to fit his costume. Uyabaleka ke. And then seyasho ukuthi akacabanga ukuthi usafuna ukuba iking. Uyabuza uJean ukuthi why engasafuni ukuba iking. Uyamphendula uArthur ukuthi because things change. Chester is getting older and you need to accept that ukuthi akasafuni perhaps kulonyaka ukuba iking. As emphendula, Jeannie is very disappointed ukuthi she has put on so much effort. She's put in so much effort in trying to make this costume. Lena angangasafuni uChester ukuyigqoka. And then he ran to the Miller's apartment wayocasha khona after uma wakhe ethini akazofita the costume. So, and then bayahamba ke Julia adds on what Arthur is saying, good, maybe Chester does not want to play the part anymore. So, uyaqhubeka nokuchaza uJean ukuthi, but it's only 3 days before the play. Sizomthatha phi ke omunye uking mangabe engasafuni lona ukuba iking. So, well, agcina ngavumanga kuChester. So bayahamba ke uJulia and Jeannie, they go to fetch Chester from the Millers. And mabefika laphayana uyaqhubeka ke uMrs. Miller uyabatshela ukuthi Chester does not want to play the part anymore. And uphatheka kabi-ke kakhulu uma wakhe. Well, ugcina-ke uyaphuma uChester and they go back home. Iqhubeke-ke iplay ngaphandle kwakhe ukuthi engasesiyo-ke iking, sekutholakale enye iking. And uJinny is not happy about this. Ngisho nje eshaya izandla laphayana after abantwana sebeqedile akajabulile ukuthi umntanakhe was not given the part noma umntanakhe akasafuni ukudlala this part. uChester-ke ayicabange lento lena ukuthi imphathe kabi uma wakhe. So agcine enze njani emthengela isipho. And then he bought his mother a present and he chose a diary with a pretty cover of roses and violets. Ukuthi uma wakhe arekhode her appointments. So to keep it a surprise, instead of putting it under the Christmas tree, he tiptoed up behind her when she was completely engrossed in the kitchen early on Christmas morning and gave it to her. He said, "I'm sorry about the play, Mom. I just don't want to be a king anymore." So, ngesikhathi uJinny ejabule present and then she hugs Chester, uyayamukela i-present. But uyasho ukuthi-ke, she didn't know ukuthi uChester felt so strongly about not playing the part anymore. So, in Chester's mind, this incident ended his childhood years. He was still the vicar's son, but he had gained a little independence. Most importantly, he had done it without too great cost to his mother. He hated to hurt her. As for his father, he couldn't be hurt. He was the Rock of Gibraltar. So I hope this helped you very much. And now, I want us to look at the questions and our responses. The first question says, what was the bundle that was delivered by the paper boy to the doorstep of the vicar and his wife? We spoke about Julian, who brought the bundle, which was the baby. So it was that abandoned baby girl that he found by the telephone booth. Number 2, give a reason why you think the paper boy brought the bundle to these specific people and not to someone else. So, he thought a baby would be best looked after by people from the church. Remember, we are talking about Mrs. Allington and Vicar. So, since they're Christians, he believed that the baby would be taken care of. And he also knew that they did not have children of their own and would like to have a baby. That is why he took the baby to them. Number 3, quote 2 words from page 167 from the text to indicate how extensive the search for the abandoned baby's parents was and describe the outcome of the search. So, those 2 words are national search. And number 4, distinguish between foster parents and adoptive parents. If you can go back and listen to the recording, you will also find the parts where we give you the definitions of foster parents as well as adoptive parents. Foster parents, the government temporarily places a child in the care of a couple or an individual to look after the child until a permanent solution is found. We find that in the story, temporarily because babengaziwa abazali baka Julia, the Allingtons became foster parents. Babembhekile for a short period of time, just in case abazali bakhe bayatholakala and then umntwana uzobe sethathwa-ke uma wakhe. And then adoptive parents, a couple becomes the legal parents of a child through a legal process. We spoke about the bureaucracy they went through ngesikhathi beba interviewer bezama ukubona ukuthi are they fit ukuthi bengaba abazali bale ingane ngayodwa. Well, siyazi ukuthi akwenzakalanga at the same time. So, adoption is a permanent arrangement. Sithola ukuthi ke uChester kanye nosisi wakhe uJulia bagcina sebe adoptiwe by the Arlingtons. Number 5. One of the social workers now spoke. Chester's mother is Nigerian. The room was frozen into silence. So, we need to look at our figures of speech each time siyenza literature. Remind yourself of your figures of speech. Maktuwa, the room was frozen into silence. It means that they were shocked because they were white people and the new baby was black. And they were also shocked that a black woman would leave her baby in the care of white people. Number 6, why would the adoption of Julia be regarded as a miracle? It seems as if Ginny could not have children of her own, and the fact that Ginny was brought to them by chance and they were allowed to adopt her can be seen as a miracle. Indlela uJulia afike ngayo to the Arlingtons, ukutholakala kwakhe near the telephone booth, alethwe this paper boy, and abazali bakhe bengatholakali. So all this becomes a miracle ngesikhathi bona ngempela bemdinga umntwana. Number 7 indicates the difference in the way Arthur and Julie dealt with Chester's adoption procedures in page 169. So, Arthur was very cautious. He didn't want to get his hopes up high and then be disappointed mangabe sekwenzakalani mangabe sebengasamtholi umntwana. Ginny, on the other hand, was calm and certain about the outcome of the adoption process and said they will handle obstacles as they arise. Number 8, how did the adoption of the 2 children change the relationship between Arthur and Ginny? So, because Ginny had always wanted children, mangabe kufika abantwana laba, she was so obsessed ngangokuthi wayengasamnakile kakhulu umyeni wakhe. And the intimacy between them nayo yayisenje, she lost interest because wayesefocuse kakhulu kule ingane lezi base beyitholile. Number 9, identify and explain the figure of speech in the following extract. So kunama lines njelana extracted from the text. Okufanele ukuthi wazi ukuthi ke yiphi le figure of speech. The Arlingtons were like a good strong tree under whose branches Chester and Julia sheltered. Ngesikhathi senza laphayana stories, when we were going through it, we went through this and we said siyazikhumbuza ukuthi if the comparison uses as or like, we refer to it as a simile. So the answer to that, Ginny, it's a simile, and the children were safe in the Arlington household. Number 10, explain the difference between the literal and figurative meaning in the following words of the principal. Remember, masikhuluma nge-literal meaning, sikhuluma ngencazelo that is direct, eqondile, and then masisikhuluma nge-figurative meaning, sikhuluma nge-meaning lena edinga ukuthi wena uyi-analyze and uyicabangisise ukuthi yini explanation yalento eshiwoyo. So, kuthiwa laphana, you little devil. So obviously, Chester is not literally a devil, akasiyena uSatan, but uyamqhathanisa, and well, without using as or like, umbiza nje uthi you little devil. You started the uproar, and now look at you laughing away with your sister. So we said also, when we have a direct comparison, sibiza ngani ke lapho? Sibiza nge metaphor. So lana kodwa akukhulunywa ngalokho, kukhulunywa nge-literal and figurative meaning ukuthi umbiza ngo-devil. The headmaster thought literally the boy was the devil because he was causing problems with his crying. But figuratively, the headmaster made a joke by comparing the boy to the devil because he caused the uproar but was now happy because his sister was with him. Number 11, after the Arlingtons told their children that they were adopted, Chester started having specific dreams about the village he came from. Provide an explanation for the specific theme of his dreams. So, Ginny made Chester a picture book about Africa that she read to him every night when he was a small child. The images in this book become part of his dream, and he thought he was dreaming of the specific village his people came from. Remember, ngesikhathi ebuza uma wakhe ukuthi, what's the Orient? Uma wakhe wamphendula wathi where your people came from. So now he thought of this village where his people came from. Number 12. How did Arthur's defiance of his mother's wish that he plays a wise man in the Nativity play again change his perception of himself? So, Chester realized that he is a good person in his own right, and he does not need to play a specific role in his life because of his origin. So, ukuthi Chester is black does not mean ukuthi kumele adlalele role just because it looks as if it fits Chester. He realizes that he does not need people to tell him what to do. He can stand as mele and ask ukuthi this is what I want and this is what I do not want. So ke ilokho ke. But akusiwona ke wodwa ke lama questions lawa esiwenzile lana okuyiwona angakusiza. Also look at your past papers and try to answer these questions. But very important, make sure that you read your short story. So this is how we wrap up our lesson for today. And please study, 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 and study very hard. Enjoy your evening. This program was proudly brought to you by Go Digital SA Foundation, Ithala Edu Platform, and Pendugani Full Service High School.
Siyanibonga ngokufunda nathi. Siyanimema ukuthi nithamele futhi nakusasa. Ningazithola lezi fundo ekhasini lethu lika Facebook elithi Go Digital SA Foundation na ku YouTube elithi Go Digital SA Foundation. Ziyatholakala na Ukhozi FM njalo ngoLwesine kusukela ngo9 kuya ku10 ebusuku. Ningasithola nango WhatsApp kwinamba yethu ethi 068 151 1079.